Before the break, we were out at the Legends MX track, basing us out also to go into the areas around Rhino Park, just on the edge of Bronkhorstspruit for round number 2 of the National Cross Country Bikes Championship, brought to you by Pepsin Plastics, Yamaha and KTM. With the time trial done, all eyes were on the queue. Vic Maharaj and Adrian Scholz from MSA were keeping an eye on things. The deciding factor had been made. The queue was decided, the juniors were clear of the track, and now it was time for the big dogs to get the job done. This was going to be GPS backed. It was a marked track, but GPS backup was going to be key, and that has now become a rule for the National Championship for the last couple of seasons. Everyone now knew what their day was going to be. For the pro categories, 6 laps of just over 45 Ks awaited them. The man that went fastest coming out the time trial was this rider, the factory KTM man who's looking to nail down another championship. Jared Coetzee absolutely pinning it and came out of the gate meaning business. Kenny Gilbert, who said he'd gone relatively safe in the time trial, was going to be second gate, but he was the fastest of the 450s to go out. And then Charon Moore trying to decide what he was going to do. Was he going to throw it all down or play the long game? For Taki Bajajas coming into racing form, it was going to be all or nothing. But the great situation for Jared Coetzee was a double-edged sword. Running the numbers out front, he had clear air, but he was also the rider who was trying to find the route. Kenny Gilbert was going to be getting himself back into that beautiful place that he likes to be able to charge up the order. Charon Moore, remember, championship points leader, brand new signing, and he was going to be one to watch out for, as he now had a lot of company on his back wheel. Brett Swanepoel wasn't happy with his time coming in for the time trial. He would be charging up the order to try and figure things out. We go on board with Taki Bajajas as we start out things on the track. The morning session was about time trials, so guys were still trying to figure out how the track goes. Now, going into the main race, they know exactly, coming out of the KTM start gate, what is around the corner and what they're going to be up against. Remember, they went out on sweet time. So if you qualified 5 seconds off the rider in front of you, you started 5 seconds off the rider in front of you, meaning things got pretty busy for a couple of riders. Brad Cox was definitely going to be a key rider to watch out for. He would be definitely bringing the 250 up and challenging inside the top 5. And the 125 was also a huge story. Matty Wilson had qualified the high school 125s inside of a top 10 overall, light years ahead of the rest of the chasing pack. In the OR2s, Rawl was decidedly slower than he wanted to be after a big crash in the morning shakedown. We now go into the first of the forest sections, where the guys have to use a little bit of cross-riding skills. This was also going to be a rider to watch out for, now getting picked up by Pepsin, and that was Dav Cocker. The brawler was going to be charging on the fast KTM 316, but he was in a lot of dust in the early stages of the event, making things a little bit tight, especially in the forest, where that Bronkhorstspruit sweet red dust just hangs in the sky, and you go blind. Taki, thankfully not in too much dust in the early laps, but also still trying to figure out where the track goes and how to get the best out of their machines. It was elbows in, but extremely fun racing in the Rhino Park area that a lot of the Gauteng riders use for their training in the off weekends. In fact, Dav Cocker was going to be one of those riders to watch. He was out here almost every weekend in the off season, so if there was a threat to the championship leader, Brad Cox, it was going to be that man. The rest of the riders made their way through the field. Also in the OR3s was going to be Ryan Peltzer. He was going to be a big threat coming off some good numbers in the off-season. And Carl McKenzie trying to just buy his way into a finish for the 125s. He's been dogged with mechanicals the whole way through the season. Eric Merry was going to be a rider in the mix as well, as we went back and checked out the rest of the start queue. It was all the national riders that would go out of the gate, 40 of them in all. And after all of the national riders cleared the gate, we started to think about getting the clubbies out into the dust of Bronkhorstspruit. Rhino Park and MX Legends giving us an amazing host venue, one of the best pit areas and facilities that we have ever had in national off-roads, and so cool to have a lot of the clubbies along for the way. We'll chat about the clubbies as well. They did race in the OR1, 2s and 3s and their age group categories, but they weren't going to be challenging for the national championship results. Wade Blau was still out there running the numbers on his machine and unstoppable as far as the senior gate goes for last season and this season. Peter Karam was the reigning GXCC OR3 champion and trying to find his way up the order in the OR3 category, with a couple of the juniors starting to make their moves up into different classes, and riders finding the edge of traction and control as they push the pace in the roost and dust at Rhino Park. This particular rider, Devin Smith from Middelburg. Championship leader in the high school 125s was way down the order as well, so it was going to be a tough day for Dylan Cox to try and figure things out, as Matty Wilson was way up the road. A couple of riders making some wrong slots and trying to figure things out. This time around, Quinton Fenter from Whole Shot racing in Benoni, trying to get up the road to chase down his brother. And the big guy, Ian Pepper, also just figuring out, spotting the green flag and knowing that he had to turn right. Didn't lose too much time there, around about a 2-second loss, but still going to be challenging for a top placing in the Masters. Already, the first top riders were through and into the pits. It was going to be a long day in the saddle. 6 laps for the pros as we watched Charon Moore roll out. And the dice for the OR3s was starting to heat up. Brad Cox had now got ahead of Davin Cocker on the road, and you could see the intensity was there as he fired his way out. A little bit of running repairs for the Pepsi Plastics Husky guys. And one of the smaller riders in the field definitely knew he was going to be in a dice now, well within the top 10, but going to be chasing down on Brad Cox, and a little bit of extra time lost. Certainly, it was a decent-sized crash if you've got to straighten up the front end. We'll be keeping an eye on the Cox and Cocker dice as we go back out on track and pick up on the number 2. Jared Kutsia, unstoppable and extending off the front. At the end of lap number 1, it looked like Kenny Gilbert was closing him down, but on lap number 2 and 3, we saw Jared Kutsia completely pull the pin. He was going to be chased down on the day by Brett Swanepoel, who came into this round as championship points leader, so there was going to be a bit of moving and shaking. Same situation for the OL1s, as Charon Moore was now in second place, chasing down on the back wheel of King Kenny. For the pros, the laps were counting down a long 6-lap race format, and for our clubbies, 4 laps. As they take a break in the pits once again, we'll take a break and see you afterwards.